Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this video is going to be a quick look at the new fusion that Plarium released today, and also a sneak peek look at a Dwarf. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so Plarium stepping up to the plate and releasing a new fusion today. So doing a lot in the fusion regard, which is good because players really enjoy fusions. So if you want to read through this in game, you're just going to click this little 3-bar tab here on the left side, go to news, and then what you see here, new epic void fusion champion. Get the support your team needs with Broadmaw. Then if we read more, basically it's just saying that they've added a epic fusion that's going to be permanent. It's never going to go away, so you can take your time. It is similar to Relic Keeper. You don't have to rush to get this done. It's something you can kind of slowly work towards if you're a newer player. And if you're a mid to late game player and you want this champion as a support, you can go ahead and fuse them. So right now what I'll do is kind of go over my opinion on the quality of the fusion and if I think it's worth it and all that. The last one they released, Roz and Scarhide, I said is definitely worth it. If you haven't seen that video, that is a really good fusion. Scarhide is usable in a lot of different areas of the game, so that's an incredible fusion for them to give us. Broadmaw, in my current epic tier list, which I will have down in the video description, a full link to my champion rankings, legendary, epic, and rare, ranked from first to worst. Broadmaw comes out about in the middle right now on my epic tier list, so not great, not bad. He's just kind of an average epic, kind of on the borderline of that good to bad threshold when I rank epics. Now, in terms of the champions that it costs to fuse Broadmaw, none of them are super good. We've got Era Blaster, who is kind of a damage dealer that has a little bit of inconsistent and uncontrollable value. So just a quick look at her here. We've got an A1 with a 50% chance of transferring a random debuff from this champion onto the target. An A2 that hits one enemy with a 60% chance of placing that target's skills on cooldown. That can be a pretty good ability in the arena because you can get that to a 100% chance to proc. So as long as she has really good accuracy, that should be a pretty consistent ability in the arena. And then attack one enemy, damage increases according to the number of debuffs on the target. That is a massive cooldown. That should be like 4 turns with a chance to get down to 3. I don't know why that is such an insane cooldown, but that basically makes Era Blaster not very good. And then the other requirement is Stone Skin. Stone Skin has an A1 that has a 50% chance of placing a provoke for 1 turn, and damage increases according to this champion's max HP. An A2 that fills the turn meter by 50% and places a 60% increased defense buff on this champion for 3 turns. And we can see we can get that to basically a permanent effect because you can get that down to 3 turns and it's place a increased defense buff on this champion for 3 turns. But in general, abilities that only affect themselves or one champion aren't going to be super endgame and impactful. And then an A3 here is attack all enemies with a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff for 1 turn. That's a decent ability. I wish it was decreased speed debuff for 2 turns, but it is 30%. So, and it is, once you book him up, it's going to be a 4-turn cooldown with a 100% chance to proc that effect if he has good accuracy. So the A3 is decent, and but again, not a super endgame meta hero, and the aura is pretty meh. If it's going to be arena only, this should be probably like 20 to 22%. But yeah, so Stone Skin is pretty meh. And then Huntress is an A1 that attacks 2 enemies, or attacks 1 enemy 2 times, sorry, with a 15% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Not a very good A1 there. An A2 that attacks 1 enemy with a 50% chance of placing a 25% weakened debuff for 2 turns. We can get that to a 3-turn cooldown. That's a decent ability. Not amazing, but pretty decent. And then an A3 that places a 15% increased crit rate buff and a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. It's only this champion, so again, I don't know why the cooldown is so insane. This should be like 4 at least, with a chance to get down to 3 after a book. So because of that, Huntress again is pretty meh. And then the last one you're going to need to fuse Broadmaw is going to be Bloodhorn, and Bloodhorn is probably the best one of these champions that we're having to fuse. He's got an A1 that attacks one enemy with a 15% chance of placing a 25% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns. That's a really low percent chance for it to be the small version of accuracy, so not a very good A1 there. And then the A2 is place a 50% ally protection buff on 2 random allies for 2 turns. We can get that down to a 3-turn cooldown, so that's a decent ability there. And then his passive is actually pretty good. It's on a 1-turn cooldown, and it's if an ally is hit with a critical hit, it's going to place a 15% continuous heal debuff on them for 1 turn. So I would like to see that be 2 turns again, but he is a rare, he's not an epic, so he's probably the best of the bunch, but still not super endgame meta game changing. So all in all, the 4 champions it's going to cost you to fuse Broadmaw are not champions that it's going to kill you to lose. You know, none of these are super game changing. It's not like there's a Bellower or a Cold Heart or something like some really super good Void rare. So yeah, then we'll dive into Broadmaw. Has an A1 that attacks one enemy with a 25% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. So this is only, freeze obviously doesn't work on bosses, so this is only going to be usable on the trash clear stages leading up to a boss in dungeons or in the arena. And it's a decent A1 for the arena, because freeze is actually really good in the arena. And then A2 is places a 30% increased crit rate buff and a 15% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. And this is pretty good. It's an ability that we can get to a 3-turn cooldown, and it's a 2-turn effect. So I'm not really a big fan of increased crit rate. It's not that great of a support buff, but you know, if you did build around it, I guess it would let you build your damage party to like 70% crit instead of 100, and then this would really help you if you actually took the time to build a team around having a support that's going to keep that buff active for you. And then in my opinion, A3 is his best utility. This is revives 2 random dead allies with 25% HP and place a block damage buff on the revived allies for 1 turn. This is a game-changing ability in the arena, and it can also be very good in dungeons. So getting that to a 5 per turn cooldown, and then we're increasing the heal to make it, I don't know, why does it say heal? I think it means, because this isn't a heal, so I think what the text is supposed to say on this, now that I look at it, is instead of 25% HP, when we book him up, we're going to be at 30, so he would revive them with 55% HP instead of 25. I don't have Broadmaw, so I would have to test that to be for sure. But on abilities like this, when it is a percent stack like that to a buff or a debuff, it is additive. So the 5 plus 10 plus 15 is 30, and then we go up to the percentage up top is revived dead allies with 25% HP. So we're going to add the 30. He should be reviving them with 55% HP. I would have to test it to make sure, but again, it's not a heal. If it were a heal, it wouldn't work like that. It would be different. So I don't know. So that's why I'm kind of confused. So because of how it's worded, it may stack multiplicatively and be something in like the 30 to 40% range of like a heal after he revives them. So if anybody has tested it and knows for sure, let me know, because this one is worded kind of weird in the text based on what the ability is. And then his aura here is increase ally defense in the arena by 33%. That's a pretty good aura. If you're gonna build like a defensive team, say you have like a Tyrell, Executioner, champions like that are based on defense, and you're gonna play kind of a slower revive style with Broadmaw, at least his aura kind of pairs with what you're going to be using him for and what he kind of synergizes with. So yeah, Broadmaw is an average epic. He's got some utility and he can be good in certain situations, but is he super, you know, god tier awesome? No, not really. So I guess the main question of the video is going to be, you know, hey Chosen, do you think this fusion is worth it? And my opinion would be, yeah, I guess. If you're in the super end game and you have lots of epics and legendaries, probably not. But if you're a newer, like beginner to mid game player, probably. I wouldn't rush for it, but yeah, I mean, losing these void rares that it takes to fuse him isn't really much, and he is a decent epic to have in your roster. So yeah, it's probably worth it. I don't think it's super game changing, but it's yeah, I'd say if you're a newer to mid game player and don't have lots of epics or legendaries, yeah, you might want to slowly work towards getting Broadmaw, and it might help out your roster. So that covers that, and I also wanted to go over this picture that has been shown to us of a dwarf. So looks like we could be getting closer to getting the release of Dwarves to actually hit the live version of the game, which would be really cool. I think a lot of people are excited to kind of see the dwarves, and if we look at his eyes, it looks like he's kind of like a dark, evil dwarf. So very interesting to see how they're going to kind of go about that when they add dwarves to the game. So I thought I would share that with you because I saw this today. But yeah, so that's going to do it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments, and I will do my best to get back to you and help you out. So as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.